Hello and welcome to another episode of Tales from a Professional Nerd. My name is Bryan Steele and I will be your nerd today and any day that you watch one of my silly little shows. So, hi everyone. I'm coming at you at 45 years of age. My birthday was just a couple of days ago. So I'm listening for all the happy birthdays. Okay, cool. Weekend Bryan has been pretty good. Had a birthday, got to hang out with my family. My wife got hit with the Rona, and then got back through it, because that's how that goes. Um, yeah, no, it's been a good week. Didn't get a chance to really play any D&D or anything, or played some video games. New seasons of Sea of Thieves started. The Warner Brothers Multiverses, which is basically Smash Brothers but with their characters. I finally got that downloaded on my Xbox and started playing that. Doing a lot of painting. I'm actually painting a bunch of D&D style adventurer figures for Peter Atkinson. I'm putting together a little care package for him. I'm assuming it's for his games when he plays his Chaldea tabletop games. So I've got a whole array of kind of weird adventurer types. So hopefully he'll get to throw those at his players. That's really it. I haven't. It's been kind of a, I don't want to say boring week in Bryan, but it's been kind of a basic week in Bryan personally. Professionally, I got through the editing process on a little novel side gig that I picked up to edit somebody's work. The Warzone is going strong. We had some very, very cool conversations with an artist and a sculptor, two separate people, to make some very, very cool stuff. I cannot wait to be able to show off some of the renders, or maybe some 3D prints if I can get the files and kind of paint some previews. That'll be a lot of fun. Definitely looking forward to some of the new Warzone Eternal stuff getting ramped up for next year. Let's see, what else? Boop, boop, boop. Put down the first words on a new Shadowrun short story, and finished up a Power Rangers manuscript. So now that is in the queue for Hasbro to take a look at, and editing to take a look at, and layout to take a look at, and art to make art stuff. And so that, I mean, it won't be out for a while. It takes quite a bit after the manuscript is done before the book gets finished. But it is nice to know that it's in the can, done, ready to go, for other people to look at and hopefully, pass up the chain. Doing a little bit of Transformers, some Transformers RPG stuff right now. Not a full manuscript, but some cool stuff that people are going to get to see actually pretty shortly. Just some interesting, cool stuff for Transformers. And then I think immediately after that, I'm either going into another Transformers book, or honestly, Kevin and I haven't really talked about what's next up after this little bit of Transformers stuff. So hopefully, I know what book I want to do next, and I hope I get the green light on that. If I don't, it's no big deal. I'm sure it will be coming along shortly. But I do know that I know what I would like to see. I know what I would like to see happen. But we'll just knock on wood, just to make sure. But yeah, aside from that, that's really it. Had birthday stuff. I post Gen Con, I sent a couple of cool emails to some people to hopefully do some unboxings here on the channel of some very cool stuff. that I'm working on trying to put together. So hopefully in the next month or two, we'll see some new and fancy merch to be able to show off to you folks. Yeah, that's it. I mean, I hate to be like, meh, but yeah, there we go. What else? There was something else on my list before we get into the topic at hand. Let me look at my list real quick. I am trying to remember what popped up. Oh, yes, because so last week when we did the Gen Con review, I totally forgot that it was that it was technically that was the newest video of the new month. So the July Comment Raffle winner was never announced. So that was a bad thing on for me. I lost track of time. I was so excited to tell you about Gen Con. I forgot to tell you who won the Gen Con, or the Gen Con. All right, let's try that again. Who won the comment raffle for July? And that was actually on episode 153, the July 29th episode, and that would be Mikhail Hladik. I think I said your name right, McCall Hladik. You won the July prize raffle. So, yay! Everybody, you make the noise. So again, I'm sorry I didn't announce that last week like I should have. But yeah, I will be letting I will be putting that on McCall's thing after this episode goes live. So again, sorry that I messed that up and forgot to announce that last time. I am sometimes a little scatterbrained. You will note my lovely money tree here, doing good, healthy. It's turned around out of the window right now because I'm trying to get it to straighten its trunk out a little bit. Its trunk, by pulling it away from the window to get it to slowly bend back towards the light. We'll see if that works. I might have to turn it back in because me getting in and out of my chair, I keep running into the tree and getting sap on me because this particular tree does lots of little sticky, gooey sap stuff. But yeah, so everyone say hi to the money tree. Hi, money tree. Yeah. All right. So let's get into it. Like I said, the week in Bryan was kind of boring. It's a normal everyday week in Bryan. But I really wanted to be able to focus on the review today, the walkthrough. So not last week, but the week before, Renegade Games released the pre-order PDF of the Transformers role-playing game, which I helped develop and write. And it has been very well received. We're getting a lot of really good responses. A lot of even what rules questions are coming up with are more about just clarification rather than straight up mistakes. It's excellent. It's a very well put together product. While the physical books are not actually out yet, I do believe you can still go to Renegade Games and pre-order it. In fact, I'll actually put the pre-order address in the description of this video, so you can hopefully take a look and grab a copy for yourself. The physical books, I believe, are scheduled to be out sometime next month, September, I think. But things are full steam ahead on the whole Essence 20 thing. And so what I wanted to do is I wanted to go ahead and do a walkthrough, just a verbal walkthrough of what's in the book, so you can know what to expect and what I am particularly happy or proud of. So I've got my PDF copy right here, and I am going to move it over to by the camera, so that way at least it looks like I'm looking at you while I'm talking about stuff. The cover of the book, you will note that if you bought the other Essence 20 products, the Transformers book looks much different than the others as far as the front cover. And from what I understand, this is a licensing thing. That the Transformers license requires very specific parameters and graphic imagery and things like that. So while our artists are kicking all kinds of ass making this book pretty, and the imagery on the cover is awesome, the specific layout and like labeling and whatnot, kind of the template of their cover, is something that is it was sort of defined by Hasbro. So there were some people that made comments that was like, why does it look so much different than the other books? That's why. That particular license has got a very specific look that it has to keep up with. So beyond the cover, you get into the product itself. Obviously, you get the credits page that talks about all the authors and developers. Obviously, the Essence 20 designers is the same team from G.I. Joe, My Little Pony, and Power Rangers. But the authors, the actual people who put the words to page for this book, is in alphabetical order. We have Ryan Costello, Gabriel Hicks, James Sombrano, Bryan C.P. Steele, Elisa Teague, and Eddie Webb. This had a big team attached to it because as the third book in our Essence 20 series, or Essence 20 licenses that we were using this new system for, this one had probably the most moving parts, no pun intended. There was just a lot of stuff that needed to go in this book, a lot of stuff that kind of needed its own playtesting and its own love and its own focus. So that's why this team was a little bit bigger when it came to the actual authoring of the book, because there was a lot more that needed to be looked at and gone through, things that we had learned from the previous releases that polished this one out. The book itself is gorgeous, very well put together. I think that you will be excited to get this in your hands when you can, digitally or otherwise. After the credits page, we have a foreword that is written by Chris Metzen, the CCO of Warchief Gaming. It is kind of a cool look at this gentleman's view on Transformers, like the toys, what they meant to him, and what it kind of the imprint that it left on him as a young person. After the foreword, we go into the table of contents, and then the introduction. The introduction is really, I love this. It's written from the perspective of Optimus Prime's War Journal. It's almost like a captain's log. It is Optimus Prime talking about the reason why the Autobots are fighting the good fight, why they're here on Earth, what really sets an Autobot apart from a Decepticon. It's very cool. There's a little blurb in there that talks about how long, like the Cybertronian version of times versus human time nomenclature. Just little flavor stuff. The intro goes through, talks about what started the war from Optimus's perspective, from his perspective as a historian. We've got the time that it goes to Earth. We got some extra definitions of things that maybe not, I won't say slang, but like terminology that might be cool to use during a game. And then we go into the Autobot data files. This was a lot of fun to put together. It is, God, 40 plus little paragraphs, very specific. Basically, it is a Autobot NPC roster without having stats for them, so that way you can, if you need somebody specific, or it's got a description of who is everybody and what they do and what their alt mode is. So even if you didn't have like the full scope of making, well, we'll say Brainstorm. So it's Brainstorm. In italics underneath, it says he's the headmaster inventor. His alt mode is an aerospace fighter. And then the blurb for him is, Brainstorm's mind matrix is filled so full of high science and ideas that if he hadn't helped create the headmaster process to take off some of that pressure, he would have surely suffered a full mental meltdown. Whenever he unravels some of that snarl of ideas, the Autobots gain some awesome new kind of technology or tool. That's really all it says. So it doesn't get into necessarily like special things that they can do or special talents or anything. It just gives you the broad stroke. This is that Autobot. If you wanted to include them as like an NPC or something in your game, if you wanted to design them further, you know what kind of alt mode they are. You know what their role is supposed to be. Build it from there. So yeah, it goes on for several pages. You get some very cool pieces of art. And then we get into the playing the game and game master rules. Basically, kind of a, now that we've talked about the narrative, let's talk about the game assets page, and then straight into chapter 2, which is character creation. And this is, if you've played another Essence 20 game, or if you've looked at any other Essence 20 games, you know what this is about. That it's the 3 fashion plate concept, origin, influence, role, and then it goes through. It starts immediately off with you select your character concept, figure out your starting Essence scores, figure out your influences, figure out your origin. Now, so one of the things that I will say this, and I will say this every time, is if you're making your first Essence 20 character, go ahead and follow the steps. Follow the steps like you would in order, however you are feeling. Also, if it has something that says, you need to meet a prerequisite for it, or, gain a perk or something like that at character creation, that's going to be completely after the whole character creation thing. As long as the prerequisites are met, then you're legal. There was some question, because depending on if you go directly down the stair steps, that if you selected an origin or an influence or something that might give you a perk, that because you didn't have your stuff assigned, you didn't have your skills assigned or anything like that, could you actually get one that had a prerequisite for it? Character creation is all one process. It doesn't actually happen in a time sort of scene. It's all one jumble. The only reason we have it split up in steps is to help people understand what each step is, not necessarily when it has to happen. If you've made multiple SS20 characters before, or if you feel more confident about it, don't worry about the when you do things. Just as long as all of the steps are accomplished by the end of character creation, you'll have a cool character. Get through the walkthrough. And then we go into influences. So influences in Essence 20 are cool ways to show specific life events or things that have imprinted upon your life. You must take at least one influence, and you can take up to 3, but you get hang-ups for the second and third influence. Hang-ups are like drawbacks, flaws if you're into the World of Darkness system. It is things that offset the fact that you're stacking a bunch of cool influence powers to your character. Now, hang-ups in Transformers are handled a little differently than they are in other Essence 20 games. Hang-ups in Transformers are, instead of each influence just having a hang-up that you must take, in this case, you have suggested, you have your influence, gives you the influence perk, and then you have potential hang-ups, meaning that obviously, if it's your first influence, you don't have to worry about one. But if it is a second or third, and you are going to take that hang-up, then you actually, instead of taking the hang-up that is attached specifically to that influence, there's a couple of choices. And the reason for this is the Transformers team, when we wrote this game, we decided that Transformers were a little more malleable, flexible, if you want to get, kind of punny. They can, some of their influences are a little more specific in concept. So in execution, for the hang-ups, we gave you a little more a broader spectrum in order for you to pick and choose, but they are all ones that kind of attach to that concept. So that's kind of one of the differences in Transformers is that when you pick your influences, you actually get a couple of different influences to choose, or hang-ups to choose from per influence. Let's talk about the influences. So first one up, we have Bureaucrat. That's someone who's in the business, the business side of things. Cube player. Cube is kind of like Cybertronian Rugby, with a ball that thinks for itself. And so you could totally be... This is the Transformers version of like the athlete influence. Experiment. Experiment means that you were... you're different. You're not a normal pattern of Cybertronian. Something's interesting about you, and you were definitely you were made or adjusted or taught differently or something that makes you a break from the norm. We have former senator, and so the governmental structure of Cybertron, of old Cybertron, is very much almost like Roman in concept, that there are higher ups in the higher classes, but most places, most blocks, most quarters, most sections of this planet have senatorial representatives that talk to those on high on their behalf. So in this case, it might seem weird to have a member of your government as a character, but you got to remember, a lot of times the Autobots were part of the system, and this just helps represent that. Gladiator. It's somebody who probably fights in the fighting pits in Cybertron, but it also might just be someone who is a professional warrior. Merc falls pretty good in this too. Hunter. You are really good at tracking and finding and potentially incapacitating life forms, whether they're mechanoids from Cybertron or maybe alien life forms. Maybe you're specialized in dealing with ancient beasts or something. Inventor. Inventor is exactly what it sounds like. Machinist. So the machinist is going to be like your medic. They are the repair guys, the upgrade guys. Having a machinist on board of your team is pretty solid. Then we have Racer, live fast, die pretty. Scavenger is going to be exactly what you think it is. It is someone who is running around finding ways to make the environment and the stuff left behind the environment and stuff to work for you. They are, well, frankly, they are just really good at making do. They're almost like survivalists on a Cybertronian level. And then we have security, which they're effectively like, guards, cops, patrolmen. That's the training that they have. And then we have war veteran. War veterans are those who have been fighting in massive conflicts for long enough that it left a mark on them. Then we have a list of the hang-ups, and then we go directly into Chapter 4, and that's Origins. Origins, just like anything else, just like any other SS20 game, are the kind of your what you were born to be, what you were born into. But one of the things that make Origins special in Transformers is that this is where you get your alt mode. This is where you pick what kind of vehicle or thing you turn into. It also defines your size. So unlike Power Rangers and G.I. Joe and I guess My Little Pony, your bot mode and your alt mode could be drastically bigger than a normal person. It is very possible to play like a 30-foot tall player character that turns into like a semi-truck. It is this is where your game master might, depending on their narrative arc, depending on what they know is going to happen, they may nudge people away from the supergiants, but that's kind of part of the fun of Transformers, is knowing that you have to be careful because you're gigantic. So the different origins, we have Champion. Champions are sports cars, luxury sedans, limos. Basically, they physically stand out as kind of social icons. We have cutters. Cutters are your water origins, so boats, submarines, things like that. We have lookouts. Lookouts are small. Well, not like small. They're small for Cybertronians. So that's how you get your compact cars, kind of pared down sports cars, motorcycles, things like that are a lot of times lookouts. Then we have probably my favorite thing from this book, as far as origins go, is the monolith. Monoliths are the big tough guys. Your Optimus Prime, your Ironhide, just these big bulky dudes. These are the guys who, they're 25 feet tall as a bot. So that's where you really have to come into, take into consideration your surroundings when you are fighting as a monolith. Outriders. Outriders are kind of your all-terrain vehicles, jeeps, things like that. They are the ones that they are your frontier scouts. Rainmakers. Rainmakers are they are going to. So there is a Decepticon class of Seeker called Rainmaker, because of their abilities. The origin Rainmaker is just basically someone who makes it rain with firepower. These are going to be your military vehicles, your tanks, the ones that are just covered in weapons that go. Origins, we have the Seeker. So in Transformers lore, Seekers are Decepticons that are flyers that are basically part of the surveillance and aerial scouting, like flyby attacks. They're the air support of the Decepticon force of the Seekers. The origin is named after them, but because they're definitely more common amongst the Decepticons, but it really just comes into it is just a very fast-moving aerial, like plane, helicopter, mostly, well, almost always planes, but that's going to be your Seekers. And then you have support. Support is cranes, ambulances. Those are going to be your. We help other bots get around, move around, get over, special terrain, that kind of thing. After the support, we go right into Chapter 5, and that is the roles. Roles are effectively the classes of the Essence 20 system. These are what defines your character's kind of career path. And in Transformers, you pick your role, you pick your main role, but then you also immediately pick a role focus, basically something that you do specifically as part of that role that makes you different from others of that role. So we start with the analyst. These are your computer processing kind of. I don't want to say they're your Cybertronian nerds. They tend to be scientists. They tend to be the experimental tech wizards, inventors. And the training for analysts, you can become either a manipulator who uses facts and data to kind of adjust their scene, and then the spec ops, which is they use that gleaned information to be an amazing, like deep insertion, almost a spy. Field Commander. Field Commander's the next big role. These are your bots that are leading from the front. No other explanation necessary. There's two types of field commanders in this book. There are the ambassadors. These are the leaders, the social leaders, the talkers. And there's the strategists, which they are field commanders. They orchestrate their teams and armies much better from the front lines. Then you have gunners. Gunners are bots that like guns. I know. Who makes this? And they have their two focus options are the gunslinger, who is all about handheld weaponry, and then the sharpshooter, who is a long-range master. Then you have probably everyone's almost immediate favorite in this book, the Mode Master. Mode Masters are they are masters of their mode. No, they're masters of their shape-changing and body alteration abilities. Their two options in this is micro-linked, meaning that they start with at least one minicon, which a minicon is basically a miniature Cybertronian. So Soundwave, Blaster, those guys that anybody who had those the mini cassette tapes, those are mini-cons, and they would be a mode master to have them. And then the other type of mode master are the triple changers. So that's someone who actually has multiple, has 2 alt modes, normally giving them like a combat mode and a really fast mode, or perhaps 2 drastically different, like a flyer and a ground, or a burrow and a aquatic. You know, that's what the triple changer can do. After that, we have the scientist. Scientist role is where the analyst takes information in real time and uses it. Scientists they take logic information and apply it over long terms, over long experiments. They are more of your traditional, like a lab tech. And their 2 options, we have the medical officer, so like Ratchet, who repairs people. Then the gadgeteer, and gadgeteers are people who you're going to get a lot of fun. You're going to have a lot of fun playing with the different technology options and things like that in this game if you play a gadgeteer. After scientists, we have scout. I can't really tell you anything about scouts that you don't already know. They get in, they get out, they're fast. They look at see things. They try to hide. They're good at hiding. And their focus options is the Outrider, that uses speed to get where they're going, and then the Prowler, which is almost like a D&D rogue. They are good at getting the jump on somebody, scouting their way into a nice hidey hole, and then eliminating a foe. That's your Prowlers. After that, we have the Warrior. Warriors are, if this was D&D, these are the fighters. These are the guys that, they are here to clobber somebody, whether it's with their fists, with an energon axe, or with the bumper of their big old truck. And then the 2 focus options there is the Sentinel, who's more based on defense and reaction, and then the Wrecker, who is he's basically a berserker. It's straightforward. I punch stuff, it falls down. Then we move into chapter 6, which is the description of essence scores of the different skills. So this is the same. There might be some different specializations that get shown, but this is the same list of skills that are in any Essence 20 game. Oh, gee. Talking too much made myself yawn. But it's got different things. There's some different options, but for the most part, if you know the Essence 20 skill system, you know how this works. Then it goes into using those skills, which has the dice shift ladder, talks about auto successes, talks about crits, talks about what difficulty, what's the difficulty set. I am going to take a moment though, real quick, because a lot of people have asked on like the Discord and things that, man, this game is so, if you don't have a really high skill, you're so reliant on the D20. So as a game master, one of the things that you need to remember is that especially if you're somebody who normally runs D&D, the difficulty of skill tests in Essence 20 is lower. Generally like 5 to 10 points lower on average. So there's a chart that talks about typical skill difficulties, and I've mentioned this to GMs online, and they're like, wait, what? Huh? An extremely simple task is a difficulty 5. Like, very, very easy to do. But the average difficulty, a routine difficulty, so literally something that everybody should, on the average, be able to do at least some of the time, is a difficulty 10. Because I've seen a lot of people that were setting their baseline difficulties at like 15 and then wondering why their guys keep failing. It's because you're setting that difficulty too high. How to roll skills, what to do with your story points, Then we get into something that makes Transformers unique and awesome, and that is energon points. So they have their own pool of game resource called energon points, and each character has a number of energon points equal to their lowest essence score. This basically is a way to hopefully try and eliminate dump stats, because energon is so cool. You'll want, when you're building your characters, you want to try and even things out. You don't want to have one stat super, super low because you added way too much stuff to the other one to make you all fancy in this one way, because then your energon pool gets lower and lower and lower. Energon points, you get to use them in special ways. Basically, at any time, you can spend an energon point to do one of the following. You get to gain an upshift on any skill test. You can ignore snag. So it doesn't actually give you edge. It just lets you turn snag off. You can regenerate an energon point in another character that you are within your reach of. Basically, you can transfer one of your energon to someone else if they've got room for it. And the energon is also used to activate, some perks, equipment, special rules. So just having energon is helpful. But then probably the biggest thing that sets Transformers apart from everyone else is they can spend, anytime that they get to 0 health, they can spend an energon to not be defeated for 1d2 rounds. So what that means is that if you've got 5 energon, someone that knocks you out, you spend your energon, you roll a d2, that tells you basically how long you can keep going at 0 health before you're defeated. And at the end of that, spend another point, get another d2. So your energon basically is an additional pool of stamina that these giant robots can use to help set themselves aside, set themselves apart from regular G.I. Joes and that kind of thing. Getting energon back is easy. Like I said, you can always spend one to give someone one, but you get to regenerate half of your energon points rounding up at the start of every in-game day. So that's something to remember, that it's not game session. It is during, you traveled for 3 days, you got half your energon rounding up 3 times. You may regenerate 1 energon point at the end of any combat against a Cybertronian opponent. That is basically to represent that when Cybertronians get smashed, get bashed, they leak a lot of energon, so you can grab up that leak kind of thing. And then the last thing is regenerating energon points by siphoning from an existing source. Energon cubes, raw energon crystals, things that you're going to hear about in adventures and on maps and stuff like that. You can use your actions to draw energon from those. Then we go into Chapter 7, which is General Perks. General Perks are just like General Perks in other games, except a lot of these are specifically set up for Cybertronian characters. We have several pages of those. There's even a handful of Minicon perks. So if you're a Mode Master and you have a Minicon, you can make your Minicon cooler. Then we get into equipment. Equipment is a little different. So Power Rangers equipment's pretty simple. You have some, you can upgrade it. There you go. G.I. Joe equipment is much more elaborate. How much you can have, how much you can requisition, how many upgrades can this have. But Transformers equipment, because a lot of times this equipment is part of them, you actually come with 2 integrated hardpoints in your body, which are basically weapon mounts. And then you have 2 external hardpoints to hold weapons, and those are your hands. Or tentacles, or what else. It goes through and talks about requisition, how to get more and cooler stuff for particular missions, how to upgrade your stuff, different equipment properties. One thing to note that in Transformers, there is not Um, the energy element of damage is not initially offered in Transformers, but it is something that will appear in certain threats and in later source books. And it's just, I should note that all energy, raw energy weapons, what they are designed to do is basically anything that has altered its molecular structure, its physical structure to be bigger, whether it's through magic or like kind of some kind of transformer mass shift or something. You get a shift up on your attacks. You get one die higher on your attacks because energy weapons are particularly good at assaulting those sort of unstable chains. Then we get into a pile of weapon examples, just a bazillion different things that you can give to your bots, including cool upgrades. Then we have some armor. I know that seems weird that a robot would need armor, but these are ways to basically augment your chassis. And then we have kits that are equipment packages that let you use certain skills or use certain skills with benefits. Then support equipment, which are things that you can attach to your character that make you better as an alt mode. So you have like a bull bar that helps in your ramming, a dozer blade counts as a shield. You could have a ladder or a loader, a cool siren to get people out of the way with intimidation checks. It's just a cool way of making your alt mode yours. Then we talk about how vehicles work that aren't part of a Transformer. So basically, if you were, like the picture depicts, we have Optimus Prime riding one of the Cybertronian assault bikes. So this huge motorcycle, and you have a big robot riding it. This is the rules for that. Then we get into some stats for some vehicles to mess around with. And then we go into Chapter 9, which is combat. So, Transformer combat, just like anything else, but one thing you gotta remember is your size is a big deal depending on what you're fighting against. But also, you get a couple of cool benefits. You can, at the time you roll initiative to set your initiative order, if you want, you can spend, you basically can, for free, convert from your alt mode to your bot mode, or your bot mode to your alt mode. Sort of like, as soon as a scene gets ugly, you can go, and do whatever, and be ready for what part of the scene you need to be. Speaking of conversion, which is the process of going from bot mode to alt mode to alt mode to bot mode, converting normally takes a move action. Some bots can do it faster if they've got a special roll perk or something. And one of the cooler things, in my opinion, it comes under vehicular combat. Normally, when a tank or something is tripped and knocked prone, it crashes. It basically breaks an axle or slips its tread or whatever. When a Cybertronian, so when a character or a Cybertronian threat is in vehicle mode and goes prone, instead of wrecking and exploding like a normal vehicle would, they actually are assumed to quickly turn into bot mode and, handstand, leap, slide, whatever, and then adjust their falling and turn back into a vehicle. We've seen it in the movies, we've seen it in the cartoons. It's a very cool little add-on. We talk about different actions. Yeah, nothing new Essence 20 wise other than the little bot things that I was just talking about. Then we get into situational modifiers like size, cover, that kind of thing. We get into the size and footprint of the different bots, damage, how in a world where you're a giant robot, so there's gonna be lots of instances where you might want to pick something up and chuck it. So it gives you an idea of what the toughness of some of these objects are for you, like to tear it up off the ground. You get into vehicle combat, which obviously happens a lot, but if anything, I think Transformers handles, because unlike in G.I. Joe, where you are a character riding in or on a vehicle, in Transformers, you are a character that becomes the vehicle. So you don't have to worry about, is my driver's stat better than my gunnery stat or whatever. It's just all you. Then we get into chapter 10, which is the exploration chapter, which talks about the passage of time, how movement works, you know, how do you jump, you know, certain diseases, conditions, you know, all of the grades that we get into Essence 20 games. But then it also talks a little bit about, you know, how much time happens between missions for you to build items, get yourself fully repaired, you know, change around some of your hard points. It's a good section. Then chapter 11 goes right into locations. These are some fancy locations that you might add to your game. You might be able to base something out of it, including the Autobot headquarters. Was built out of the Ark. Autobot Road, which is effectively like kind of like limited wormholes underneath Earth. Dinobot Island. We have some Decepticon headquarters, and then some options for some other bases, and then we have some interesting locations that might be fun to build, to have characters be there as part of a mission or, you know, something else. We talk about the different like environmental locations on Earth and how what that means to Transformers. Then we get into probably my favorite chapter as a designer that I got to do, and that is the threat chapter, chapter 12. So this basically, we were given a list of threats, of Decepticon threats, to stat out as threats, so I can make them as unique as I want, so long as I still fit to the kind of the threat, the how you build threats, how you use threats. And I'm not going to say that I outdid myself, but I outdid myself. Each of the named Decepticons gets a piece of art. So it shows you what to see. There's a little blurb of who they are, and then they have a full stat page all to themselves that each individual one was unique to a canonized character. So I'm going to go through. I'm not going to tell you anything unless something jumps out at me, but I'm just going to basically roll through and tell you all the different things. We have Acid Storm, Arachnid, Armorhide, Astrotrain, Barricade, Blitzwing, Breakdown, Cyclonus, which there is a slight error in Cyclonus's text blurbs that are going to be fixed in future reference. There's several references to his Scourge drones. The Scourge drones actually have their own name, and they're the Sweeps. That's literally just a typo on my behalf. Dead End, Demolisher, Detour, Kickback, an Insecticon, Knockout, Mega Octane, Megatron. All right, I'm going to stop on Megatron momentarily. So Megatron was probably the most fun I had making a Decepticon threat, because he's Megatron, you know? And so it was, you know, let's make these amazing, powerful attacks, and, you know, he's this just monster of a dude. But then I got to add his hang-ups and powers. He has one power. Yeah, he technically has two powers that make me very happy. And then his hang-ups are perfectly tailored for him. His powers, he's got You Will Fall, which is 1 per scene. It takes a standard action. He basically stands in the middle of the chaos of a battle and says something horrible to all of his enemies, that they're going to suffer, that it's going to be the worst, and then he makes an intimidation-based attack versus everyone's willpower within 100 feet. If he hits them, they're frightened. If he crits them, they actually suffer psychic damage. And then my favorite, because there is a scene in the Transformers movie from 1985 that was so perfect and really just basically highlighted Megatron as just one bad dude. And that is where I think it's Jazz. It's either Jazz or Wheeljack. Is like reaching up to him, and kind of he's all wounded and injured, and he's trying to get Megatron to don't, and Megatron just points his fusion cannon at him and just executes the guy, saying the words, "Such heroic nonsense." That scene, it personifies Megatron's mentality to me. And so I gave him a power of such heroic nonsense, and basically he can give up his entire standard action once per scene to make a single fusion cannon attack against any prone target of gigantic size or smaller within 20 feet. If this attack is successful, the target is immediately reduced to 0 health and defeated. Basically, this is his execution shot. I love it. His hang-ups, he has megalomaniacal monologue. Megatron is a power-mad tyrant and will gladly take a moment to gloat when he is successful. Anytime a foe is defeated, Megatron will spend the next D2 of his turns self-aggrandizing and giving braggart speeches instead of taking normal actions. So it's, yes, this dude can throw out massive amounts of firepower, he can murder people in one shot, but if the battle really does start tipping towards the Decepticons, he takes time out of killing people just to say how awesome he is. And then the last hang-up is the reward for failure. If one of Megatron's allies fumbles in his presence, Megatron will target that ally with at least one attack on his next turn, even if that means defeating them. Basically, we've seen Megatron punch, shoot, kick, slap his fellow Decepticons more times than I can count. And this way, it basically shows when one of his allies fumbles, so not just a regular failure, but like straight up just really cocks it up, Megatron will punch him, he'll shoot him, he'll, depending on the circumstance, he'll show that, basically quit screwing up in my presence. So after Megatron, we have Shockwave, another awesome Decepticon that people love. We have Skywarp, Slipstream, Starscream, fan favorite, Soundwave, another fan favorite. We have the stats for Ravage, which is his minicon that is the Panther. There are stats for Buzzsaw, Laserbeak, Frenzy, Rumble in one of the upcoming source books. They're not in this, sadly. Tantrum. Tantrum is one of the Predacons. Thundercracker. And then after the named Decepticon threats, we throw in some drones. So one of the things that they did in this show a lot is they showed tons of unnamed Seekers and unnamed, here's a flock of Insecticons, but they never, only one or two of them actually spoke. Well, that's because they later on explained it in the comics that those are drones. They're not mindless. They just have kind of boring, sparkless personalities until they've earned, when they get cooler, they learn more, they evolve a personality, and they become new and better versions of the various characters, drones. We have Insecticon drone, we have Scourge drone, which again, that was so the drones that were made from Scourge are sweeps. So it's the same thing. I just named them wrong. Seeker Bombers. And then we have some general Decepticon threats. That's a Decepticon Annihilator, Decepticon Assassin, Decepticon Commando, Decepticon Seeker, Decepticon Seeker Rookie, Decepticon Seeker Scout, Decepticon Sniper, Decepticon Soldier, Decepticon Spy. And then we have, just to kind of help fill out some scenes, potentially, we have some unaligned Cybertronians, and that's the Brawler, so just basically a Cybertronian tough guy. And then the Cybertronian Trader, which is someone who you might need to talk to about getting energon or a specific upgrade. And then Heat Seeker drones. These are they're just floating drones that Cybertron used a lot to like deal with vermin. And Wheeljack later uses them a lot to help protect, to help defend the Ark. Then we actually have some human threats, because, again, you are robots in disguise, and giant robots occasionally spook the humans. So we have civilians, we have a human military pilot, human scientist, human soldier, an armored tank, a combat jeep, a combat jet, a compact car, a military helicopter, a mini sub, a motorcycle, a pickup truck, a race car, a speedboat. And then we get into Chapter 13. Chapter 13 is running an adventure. So there's some tips and hints on how to run an adventure, how to balance your different your encounters and things, how to break down an adventure itself. And then we have a sample adventure called Troubled Waters. That is surrounding the Hoover Dam, I believe. And it's very cool. It's got some cool art. There's a handful of stat blocks in there that we've already seen, but they're still there. And that ends... therein ends the Transformers book. So that's the walkthrough on everything you'll get in the Transformers Core Rulebook. We have already announced that there is a... there'll be a Game Master screen that'll come with a mini adventure. And then there's an adventure series book that we have not announced the name of yet, so I'm not going to tell you. But I did write it. And I've seen some of the art from it so far, and it is awesome. It's going to be a really cool adventure, or series of adventures. And then shortly after that should be the Decepticon source book. Which, similar to how the Cobra sourcebook for G.I. Joe is going to have a bunch of cool information to use in your G.I. Joe games, but it will also have methods and stylings to build Cobra characters. The Decepticon book will do the same thing. It'll have a bunch of really cool stuff for all Transformers games, but it will have a giant section in it on how to play as Decepticons, or maybe former Decepticons if you want to like be a turncoat or something. Yeah, so that's the book in a handbasket, in a nutshell, in an energon snack. I hope that I didn't talk too fast. I hope it gave you some good information, some insight on how the book is going to be put together. I can't wait for people to get their hands on the physical copies and for it to start showing up in stores and things. And I do think that there's going to be a good chance that I may possibly try to run a Transformers game a little bit down the road, not just for my playtesters, but like maybe out in the open. But yeah, no, it's I'm excited. Oh, also, every Tuesday night for the next like 8 weeks, I think, try and watch the Renegade Games Twitch channel, or shortly thereafter their YouTube channel, to see an actual play of Transformers being played. Eric Campbell is the GM, and he's running an all-star cast of very, very cool people. There's only been one episode so far, so you're not behind. You're not too far behind. So if you wanted to get caught up, click on the link I'm going to put in the description and start watching. So without further ado, stay safe. COVID's still out there. Sucks, but it is. Wear a mask in places that ask you to. Please definitely get vaccinated and boosted. That has been a huge help for everybody I know, myself included, that has gotten it in the past like 3-4 months. But yeah, so just stay safe, have fun. Normally I say let's play a game, or go play a game. But today, since it's Transformers focus, I'm going to say, till all are one. Bye, guys.